Hey Don, I'm here in the 1200 block of Logan Street in Decatur where FBI agents are still here, roughly a dozen of them. If you take a look into the street, they've blockaded half of it. They're also here with the Secretary of State bomb squad. Don, construction like this slows all of us down, but emergency crews need to get out to the scene and fast, so I asked them what they're doing to get around the mess. Normally, they'd be in boats out on the water, but this year, with the water levels this low, kayaks are the only way they can get around. There are three major parts of this project. They're making the road an even width, they're adding a bike path here, and they're adding modern drainage like this to replace the ditches on the side of the road. As you can see behind me, the carnival already well on its way to being set up. For the first year ever, they have LED lights on the Ferris wheel. It's looking pretty good. Police say the suspect, who was wearing a mask, approached two separate victims in two separate cars, showed a handgun, demanded money, and took off down the street. So I called. I saw your sign, erase bad credit for $250, and was just wondering how it works. She told me she was enrolling another client and hung up. So I tried again. Just wondering how it works. Same response.
With more than 40 railroad crossings in Decatur, you have probably been stuck behind a train.
In fact, many of you on Facebook told us you've waited more than half an hour. Well, tonight our Paula Thornton investigates the trouble spots and the high cost to fix them.
Decatur has a reputation. It's a railroad town.
More than 200 miles of track crisscross Decatur, meaning drivers get stuck waiting for the trains to pass.
Sometimes you get blocked there for 10, 15, even 20 minutes sometimes.
If you're running 5 minutes late to work and there's a freight, you're not happy.
Frustrated, angry.
Oh, I get impatient like anybody else.
Mark Smith studies train and travel patterns in town.
Because time is money.
I asked him which crossings are blocked the most.
We had issues, but we didn't know they were as significant as these are.
At Brush College by Ferries Parkway, the worst, blocked more than 17 hours each week. Then it's El Dorado near Martin Luther King, blocked 15 hours a week. And Ferries Parkway near ADM, blocked nearly 8 hours each week.
That's entirely too long, and they do something there.
Smith is working on solutions.
We went into this wanting win-win situations. How can we help their bottom line and help the community with regard to congestion?
One answer, overpasses like these, but two of them, built near ADM, could have a price tag of $60 million.
They're expensive, but it's expensive the way it is because of people's time, the travel, wear and tear.
Over time, the buildup in that area, even with one overpass, would look like this if nothing else changes. Traffic blocked up, bumper to bumper.
Yeah, that would get under your skin there.
I think that's crazy. What if there was an emergency?
In the meantime, we just learned to drive around it.
It's a mixed blessing. You know, that's our bread and butter, or soy milk.
Though waiting for a train to pass can feel like an eternity, these symbols of commerce will keep rumbling through town. Smith and the URS design firm are continuing to study the most efficient solutions to the problem. Now, that's both for the companies and the people driving around. The results of that study should be out in the next couple of months, but of course, this is not a problem that can be solved just overnight. Don, back to you.
Well, Paula, are there any laws to stop trains from blocking crossings for, a certain long length of time?
There actually used to be a law on the books that would stop trains from blocking crossings for 20 minutes, but back in 2008, the state Supreme Court actually struck that down, so now there aren't any limits at all.
Interesting. All right, Paula, thanks.
There's not a grave for Barbara Ann Hilton, a young mother who vanished 40 years ago. Decades later, her family is still searching for answers, and investigators say they're closer than ever to finding them.
And this is Barbara at her prom, probably her senior prom. So you can tell she was beautiful.
Touching photos of Barbara Ann Hilton.
Barbara was just a wonderful, caring person. We had lots of good times together on our trip again to Washington.
It's the only contact Carlissa Puckett has had with her cousin and close friend in decades.
So my aunt called me and said Barbara didn't come home the night before.
And she never came home. Barbara disappeared 40 years ago. The family hasn't heard from her since.
40 years of torture.
At 23 years old, Barb was a beauty, a nursing student at Lakeland Community College, and a doting mother to a baby girl.
That child grew up not knowing if her mother had abandoned her, you know, or if her mother had been murdered, and so it had a lot of impact on her.
August 5th, 1972. Barbara was visiting her boyfriend Jimmy Washington on the upper floor of this Mattoon apartment. It's the last place anyone saw her.
She was possibly on her way to Decatur from where Jimmy originally came from.
But she never got there. Her car, a green 1969 Chevy Nova, a clue, helping answer the question, did Barb run away or was she murdered?
You know, we wondered, did something really happen to her? Because it just wasn't like her to take off.
This is the area where Barbara's empty car was found near the Montrose Blacktop and Route 121. The keys weren't in the car, the gas tank was full, and the car was parked into the road, leading investigators to suspect foul play.
Red flag for us. Something happened on that night to Barbara.
Effingham County Sheriff John Monette and State's Attorney Investigator Ron Kilman have reopened the case.
Things were looked at differently in 1972 compared to today.
So many people and places and things have changed. We've got to try to pull this all back together.
The case was closed in 1973, many of the records destroyed.
I think they felt they ran out of leads. I think it's that simple. I think they felt like they ran out of leads.
But Kilman hasn't. He's been compiling new information, looking at the case with fresh eyes.
We have people that we haven't ruled out.
He says someone knows something about Barb's disappearance and is covering it up.
To keep that information from the family is nothing more than being selfish on the person who knows.
Barb was outgoing, had many friends. Kilman says they could be the key to finding out the truth.
I want to know everything possible about Barbara.
And with the right information, the case could finally be closed.
You know, it would just bring such great relief, even if ultimately the fact is that we find out that Barbara was murdered, as we all now suspect.
Puckett has just one humble hope, that what happened to Barb comes into focus. But for now, the family suffers.
You don't have a body, you don't have a headstone, a place you can go visit.
No answers, no closure. Memories of their forever young beauty, the only thing left. Kilman says they're looking for specific information, such as who Barbara hung out with in Mattoon, who knew her in Decatur, and what sort of comments people who knew her made when she went missing. Anyone with any information should call Investigator Kilman at 342-8447. Thanks, Sean. Now, the Illinois House is in special session today. Their first order of business is to clean up corruption within their own ranks. Doug Wolf is live at the state capitol. Doug, the House took a historic action today, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Break a little sweat, but not too much of it.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks so much for joining us. For the latest news and weather anytime, log on to WANDTV.com and you'll get it on demand.
Thanks, Paula, for helping out today at 4. We'll see you back here at 5. Have a great one.